So what's your relationship with food? Do you struggle with food? Do you feel like you need to lose weight? I know I did. I found myself very overweight. And after trying everything, I sought out to find out what I needed to do to finally get relief. So come follow me and see what I did. Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Abby and I'm so excited that you're here today. Let's look at this picture here. Who is this person? Well, this was me at my sister's wedding in February of 2012. And yes, this picture is forever immortalized in my sister's wedding photos. In fact, my nieces and nephew, until they were older, didn't even believe that that was actually me in those pictures. So let's go back and start in 2010 is when I got sober. And throughout 2011, I struggled with mental illness. And at the end of 2011, I found myself very overweight, more so than I had ever been. So I decided I need to do something about it. So I did what I had done before, when I was a lot younger, is I just thought I'd exercise more. So I went to the gym, I got a trainer, I worked out every day, and I actually started to lose some weight and I was so excited. But then that weekend would come where I would go on an emotional eating binge and bam, like 3 days later, I feel like I'm right back where I started. What was I doing? From December to February, nothing had changed much. And after my sister's wedding, when I saw myself in pictures, and then pictures like this, and this, and this, I knew that I had to do something else, but I didn't want to. I'd been like this for so long. I tried every diet. I did all the things. And you know what happened? I would stick with it until I hit that goal weight. And then what do? I go right back to eating the way that I was. And I didn't want to do that. I was miserable, but I was comfortable. And I didn't want to change. So fast forward to April. And I am on my way to Dollar Tree to go get some Easter supplies for my kids' Easter baskets. And I'm coming home and I ate lunch at home, and I'm driving back home and I drive by a Whataburger. And I stop and I get a Whata-sized hamburger meal with large fries and a large drink, and I eat it in my car when I'm not hungry. And I cried all the way home. And I pulled into my driveway and I went from crying to just angry. I kept telling God, I've given up so much already. Don't take away food from me. And I just kept thinking about it. And that following Tuesday, I was on the phone with my sponsor, and in mid-sentence, I just blurt out to her, I'm a food addict. And that sweet woman, without missing a beat, says, okay, well, we're gonna work the steps on it. So she told me to get a composition notebook and to start writing down everything that I was eating every day. Well, there's certainly some motivation having to write down everything you eat and knowing that someone else is going to actually look at it. But it wasn't going to be enough. So I'd actually just started leading another step study. And so great, right here, not a coincidence. I know this was God just putting this right in front of me. So, hey, I'm going to start working recovery on food, just like I had on alcohol, just like I had on every other addiction or issue that I had. So I have to start figuring this thing out. What's this going to look like? But first comes my next Celebrate Recovery meeting. And for weeks, I sat there just holding on to my chair every time they came to that part in the meeting where they say, does anybody want a desire chip? Which, if you don't know, that's just where you say, hey, I have a problem and I want to get help on it. I want to start working on it. And for weeks, I had just sat there, just so angry every time they said that. And I refused to get up. I wasn't going to do it because the thought of not having a brownie for the rest of my life was just too much. In my head, I'd just given up too much, and that was just going to be too much. But I sat down with my sponsor, and we started looking through scripture, and I started just really thinking about what was my actual problem. Yeah, my problem was food, but I had a spiritual problem as well. And my relationship with food showed that. I was what you would call an emotional eater, right? When I was upset, when I was happy, when I was pretty much any emotion, especially extreme emotion, that's where I went. I went to food. When I was happy or sad, I went to food to comfort me. And it worked for a while. But as I sit down and I think, okay, I'm having to surrender this, I knew it had to be different. In all the diets I'd done before, it was get your goal weight and then you stop the diet. Well, I knew that wasn't going to work here. That I had to change my whole philosophy and that it couldn't be about weight. So that was my number one thing, is I did not ever set a goal weight. Some of the other parameters that I put out for myself, again, this is what worked for me, along with working the steps, is I said no restaurants for 3 months, no fast food, no sit down, no eating out of my house anywhere for 3 months. I would only eat until I was no longer hungry. Not until I was full, but until I was no longer hungry, which was a huge distinction for me that I never thought of. And in that, I told myself that I would have to wait 20 minutes after I ate before I could get seconds so that I could actually give my stomach and brain time to communicate to see whether I was actually still hungry or not. Because before I'd eaten so fast that I just ended up feeling gross all the time, right? So there was drink water between all the bites, no eating out, no eating, and if I'm not hungry, even if I was hungry, if I was feeling happy or sad or any other extreme emotion, I would not eat during that time period because I had to retrain myself that I don't eat that way. I don't eat for emotions. I eat for health. And so as this went from always trying to lose weight previously, now this was, okay, now my primary goal, my purpose is to glorify God with my body. So what happened? So with my step study and with my sponsor, I got to work. And as I passed by my old fast food restaurants, as people around me were going out to eat and going to do these fun things, because food is very social. As people were going around and doing those, And I realized as I passed a Taco Bell or a Sonic or a Whataburger, and I realized that I could not stop. There were times, honestly, that I would just throw this massive temper tantrum in my car because I was angry. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to give this stuff up. I didn't want to do hard things because nobody wants to do hard things, right? And I was so angry, and I just kept having to go back to, I'm sick of the way I was living. I'm tired of the yo-yo. I'm tired of never feeling like I'm fixing this problem. And I want to glorify God in everything I do. And in order to glorify God with my body, I had to surrender all of that. And in recovery, they say that you will surrender when your pain becomes greater than your fear. And I certainly had finally hit that place. So I finally got to my 3 months, and I followed my parameters, and I had not eaten out. And I was really, really proud of myself. And at this point, I thought, okay, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. And it does get easier and easier. And it was just, I remember when I got sober, how it's so hard at first. I couldn't be around people that were drinking. I couldn't be around anything like that. And I mean, now, like, I couldn't be around desserts. I couldn't be around people eating anything that I would think tastes good or previously tasted good, because it just messed with my mind too much. So it eventually got easier the further it went. And then it got to the point that I thought, I've done so much work. Nothing is worth messing this up. And just like the alcohol, where eventually it didn't bother me, eventually sugar didn't bother me. Food didn't bother me. We were at Justin's grandparents' house for Christmas that next year. And there are pies and cookies and cakes and everywhere, all behind where I was sitting. And I was talking to his aunt, and she said, how does that not bother you, all that stuff behind you? And I told her I really didn't even notice it. And that's how far I had come. Is I'd come from not being able to stop eating once I started, especially sugar. Once I started, I could not stop, often until I made myself sick. And now all of a sudden, my brain is starting to change. The things that I like, my taste buds are starting to change. It really was amazing to see. And what I also realized was I thought it was going to be is that God had good for me in all of this. So, what am I like now? Well, as I continued on the program, as I continued about November, so around Thanksgiving of 2013, my weight finally settled at 135. I had started at 260 and I ended up at 135. And here is our family picture from that year on Thanksgiving. So when you put them side by side, it's a pretty big difference, huh? And here are some other pictures just as I went. And yes, I had a renewed sense of confidence. I was so proud of myself. There were all those good emotions and all those good things, but it wasn't because I had lost the weight. It was because I finally turned my mind to honor God with my body, and the weight was just a byproduct of doing what was right and trying to honor God in all that I did. Now, I'm going to say, just like most of the struggles that I've gone through, things were very public for people to see. People at our church, my parents' friends, just people that we knew had seen me yo-yo back and forth all the way up to 300 pounds at one point, had seen me yo-yo back and forth off and on. I'd lose 50 pounds and then I'd find it later, and I just went back and forth and back and forth. And I was determined that this was gonna stick, and I knew it would, because it wasn't about keeping my goal weight. So then I got to go and encourage people. And for the people that say there's no way that I can do this, it's too hard, it's too much, because I kind of thought, well, I'm fine just where I am, right? Because I don't want to do this. So now I'm happy. So now I'm able to help others. Now my kids, my daughter especially, she knew what I was like when I was very heavy. My older two kids both knew what mommy was like when I was very heavy. And guess what? Especially for my daughter, as I'm trying to raise her to have a good self-image, when I'm trying to raise her to be healthy, she gets to see me change and just transform in so many different ways other than the health. And instead of, oh, mommy lost weight because mommy was overweight, or mommy was healthy, mommy was, fat, or any of those things that you want to say, I got to say, hey, mommy was not healthy. I had made some choices that were not good for me, but now I'm making better choices, and now I get to be healthy. And guess what, y'all, when I lost weight and when I was to that place that I was always meant to be, my mental health was better. My physical health was better. I was a happier person. I just was probably a lot more pleasant overall. And so my kids now and my husband, they got that wife and that mom. And my kids got to see me go through something really hard, from throwing temper tantrums because I was so mad to having to stop eating fast food, to where I was now and eating salads, and they actually didn't even bother me, but they tasted good. So after that, I got into fitness, and I worked on a bunch of fitness stuff for a long time, and that took me really far, and it helped my mental health so much, and I'm so grateful for that. Now, did I stay here forever? Well, you might notice that I'm a little heavier now than I was in those last photos, because you know what? Life is not a straight line. We're always gonna have hills and valleys. And so in Saturday's video, I'm gonna share part 2 about my food recovery journey and show you that even the valleys, God has given me something amazing to see, and He has revealed something amazing about Himself to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you will hit that subscribe button so that you will not miss any of our future episodes. And I will see you here on Saturday with part 2 of my food recovery journey. Bye for now.